Across the continental United States is quite interesting again today. We've got off the east coast a really intense mid-latitude cyclone. These white lines are isobars. They're lines of constant sea level pressure. And so the closer they are spaced together, the stronger the winds for reasons that we'll describe later in the term. And also the number of these concentric isobars surrounding this storm indicates that the central pressure, the minimum pressure in the middle of that storm, is very, very low. It's down in the 958 millibar range, which maybe doesn't mean much yet, but that's about a 6% departure from the average sea level pressure. And again, that might not sound like much, but the atmosphere does not tolerate imbalance. And so a 6% departure from average is very enormous. In fact, that's the kind of central pressures that characterize Category 3, borderline Category 4 hurricanes. So this is a really intense extratropical cyclone. We'll see a beautiful picture of that in the satellite movie in just a second. Over the continental United States in the middle part of the country, we're looking at a region of high pressure. So just the opposite of a cyclone. For this reason, regions of high pressure are known as anticyclones. And as a consequence of the anticyclonic conditions over us, the wind is quite light. Last night, the skies were not as clear as they were the night before. Temperatures were cold, but not as cold as a consequence of that. But the lack of winds makes it easy to make the air get really cold over a fresh snowfield. So we had a pretty low temperature again last night. Just to our west, you can see that these isobars, these lines of constant sea level pressure, are fairly closely spaced together suddenly again. And as it turns out, with lower pressure to our west in this case, that means the flow is going to be coming from the south over the central plains, just to our west. As the day moves on, that whole structure will move eastward, so we'll start to gradually feel a wind from the south over the rest of the day today and into Saturday and Sunday. So the temperatures will moderate, but we will see some of this unsettled weather over the Intermountain West currently moving into our region late in the day, Saturday into Sunday. We have a pretty substantial threat for some snow, although not a lot of it, it doesn't look like, unless you're down at the Wisconsin-Iowa border where it may be a little more substantial. Then on the west coast of the United States, even though this is a jumble of L's, not every single place here is an individual low pressure system. This is just a complicated weather pattern over the Intermountain West. The main storm, as we'll see in the satellite movie in just a second, is over the southern and central California coast. We'll see a cloud mass going straight up across the Sierra. Here's where the Sierra Nevada is, from right about the elbow in the border between Nevada and California, and there's really heavy snows falling at elevations. Mammoth Mountain, which is in the central part of the Sierra, just to the south of Donner Pass, stands to see about 10 feet of snow over the period from late Tuesday into the end of the day today. 10 feet of snow, unbelievable. So extraordinary snows falling in the Sierras. Good news for agriculture in the spring in California, as long as it stays as snow over the winter, is that water is in the bank. You can gradually see it come down from high elevation for irrigation in installments as it melts. So that'll be quite nice for us. So let's take a look at the temperatures across the country this morning. This is at about 8 a.m. this morning. That map was a little bit, this is 7 a.m. for us. In this map, the earlier map was about 8 a.m. surface map. So here we have temperatures about 6 degrees overnight in Madison. It might have been a little colder than that by the time all was said and done. 5 at Green Bay. So generally single digits across the state, a little bit below zero up in International Falls. Single digits prevail over New England and much of the northeastern United States till you get to the city. And New York City, Philadelphia is even 8, but New York City's 14, and then everywhere south is warmer. But look at these temperatures down in Florida. Jacksonville, Florida this morning at 8 a.m. local time. 33 degrees. That is not something Jacksonville natives are used to. 34 in Mobile Bay, home of the late, great Henry Aaron. And then 44 in New Orleans. So these are pretty chilly temperatures for the southern states. This is about the time of year where they're going to see their annual minimum temperature. It's going to be now or between now and about the 10th of February. And so we're starting to get pretty close to that. As you can see, some pretty chilly temperatures. West Coast, where it's been raining and snowing at elevation, is pretty chilly, even though this map indicates a 5 a.m. temperature along the coast in the low to mid 40s. Not terrible, but it's been a rainy, dreary period there, so it's not surprising it looks like that. Here's the East Coast satellite image, and the story of this image I'll get to in just a second. First, I'll point out where the continental U.S. is, and we can see the western Atlantic basin quite nicely in this image. Look at this beast of a storm that's churning away well southeast of the maritime provinces of Canada and New England. This is an extraordinary storm. As I mentioned before, the central pressure is down to about 960, 958 millibars, and there's a couple of interesting features of this. First, look at this spine of cloudiness that you can see. I'm tracing it out with my cursor. That's the cold frontal portion of this cyclone, and that stretches all the way from just southeast of Newfoundland down to far eastern Cuba and into the Dominican Republic. So this is a large-scale weather system. And then there's cloudiness that heads off to the east, and it actually goes off the map. If we had a bigger domain, we'd see even more of it. And that's the warm frontal portion of the cyclone. And then back on the northwest side of the storm is the so-called occluded quadrant of the storm. All of these details we'll learn more about as the term goes on. Were such a storm as this to be centered over the continental U.S., it's in this occluded quadrant where the heavy snow would be falling, and that makes it my favorite place in all the storms. So pretty interesting. Across the eastern half of the continental United States, almost cloud-free, except the clouds that form in the cold air funneling off the continent. But we see only high clouds over us in Madison today. That will change as the cloudiness that's more obvious in the Intermountain West gradually encroaches from the west. And then we get an only oblique view of what's going on off the coast of California. We'll get a better view of that in just a minute. So let's instead go to our radar summary over the continental United States for the last several hours this morning. Not much precipitation occurring anywhere in the eastern two-thirds of the continental U.S. And then that bit of precipitation that is falling is scattered, although occasionally heavy, in the southern Sierra and then just north of Los Angeles and San Diego areas. You can see it down here over the, the southern part of Nevada, and scattered over Idaho and parts of Montana. But this is the main but last vestiges of what has been a really intense precipitation event for the south coast of California, actually from San Francisco southward, all the way into the Sierra Nevada. And we'll see some evidence of that as we go forward in time. Here's the satellite movie for the west coast of the United States over the last several hours. I think it's the last 12 hours. And so at the beginning of it, you can see there's the cloudiness over the California-Nevada border. It's just racing northward along that border, and that's where the highest terrain of the Sierra is. And so there's just been tons and tons of snow coming out of that at high elevation, heavy rain in the lower valley locations. And then you can see this popcorn-looking cumulus set of clouds coming in just north of the Bight, the so-called Bight of California. That's going to make it showery south of San Francisco and in and north of Los Angeles during the day today. So it's kind of an unusual rainy day for LA, but heavy, heavy snows have fallen in the Sierra. Then there's another storm that's just in the southern Gulf of Alaska that's its cloudiness spreading toward the British Columbia coast, and yet another one beginning to get organized off the Aleutian Islands right in this section. You'll see it at the last point in the movie, and you can see all of these disturbances are rotating counterclockwise. That's a characteristic that we'll describe. There'll be a physical reason for that later on in the term. Okay, so a very active period in the Pacific Ocean for the weather. And then here's a Friday event that we'll talk about every Friday, and that is a little bit of a forecast. And it's impossible to do a comprehensive forecast in a short amount of time. So what I've chosen to do is show you how the temperature field at about 1 mile above the ground will evolve over the period of the next 7 or 8 days. So this is the 850 millibar temperature map. The colors that you see on the map correspond to temperatures. So this light blue right here, I've got the cursor, is 0 degrees Celsius. Everything's in Celsius. And then when you get to this light green, it's plus 10. And when you get to this light purple, it's about minus 10. So one gets the idea, and it's every 2 degrees. Every new color is a 2-degree increment. So one gets the idea that the colors will tell you something about how the temperature evolves at the location of interest, where I'll put it right at the cursor. That's Madison. Okay, so this is a forecast made last night at midnight, and this is valid this morning at 7 a.m. So let's go ahead. I want to make sure you can see the time. There it is. And the time is in Greenwich Meridian time. So this is noontime London. We subtract 5 hours from that at our current time of the year. And so it's 7 a.m. for us on Friday, the 29th of January. We start out with temperatures of about minus 12 or minus 10 at a mile above the ground. So that's consistent with the fact that it's been cold here this week. And what we're going to do is kind of gauge what's the likely change in the weather going to be, at least temperature-wise, based on how the temperature changes at this level. If it warms up at this level, it's likely it will warm up at the ground. If it cools down at this level, it's likely it'll cool down at the ground. So that's the idea. And we'll go ahead at 12-hour increments. I'll jump ahead a day at a time. So I'll go all the way to Saturday morning with 2 clicks. And by the time we get to Saturday morning, notice at Madison that the color is now kind of a light blue. We're substantially warmer by tomorrow morning than we are today. And that's going to be because this storm is getting itself organized to our southwest and forcing that southerly flow that I mentioned on the surface map to invade our region, not just at the surface, but at levels above the ground. So we're going to gradually warm up overnight today and into tomorrow. Not above freezing, but we'll be warmer than we are today. And then by Sunday morning, we have this storm over central Illinois, and it's going to be snowing Saturday night into Sunday here. I think most of the snow will be concentrated to our south, so we'll miss the main event probably. But we will see some snow on Saturday night into Sunday on top of our relatively fresh snow. Temperatures will be a little warmer, as you can see, much warmer than the purples of -10 that we started this forecast with, which was Friday morning right now. So let's go ahead another day. It gets a little bit colder by Monday morning. We're back into darker blues. Not as cold as today, but a little bit colder than the weekend. So the snow comes, and then there's a little bit of a chill behind it. Tuesday starts to maybe warm up again into the light blues. By Wednesday, we're into the very light blues, even a light green. So probably the warmest day of the week will be Wednesday or Thursday. Here's Thursday morning. Well, I'm going to stop here. Wednesday night, we get a really intense storm developing over the Kansas-Nebraska border, with strong winds from the south over us at this level, at least, and likely at the surface as well. And that means it's going to warm up during the day Wednesday, probably getting above freezing by the end of the day Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. And then Thursday morning, we are going to have one heck of a storm on our hands if this forecast verifies. It'll be windy because the white lines here are equivalently isobars, like on the sea level pressure map. The closer they are together, the stronger the winds. This indicates really strong winds for us in Madison, and temperatures above freezing. So we probably will have a windy, rainy morning. So that'll mean slushy because we have so much snow on the ground. But that's Thursday morning. By Thursday night, the storm has gone over the central part of our own state, and the cold air on its western side has kind of funneled in back behind the storm. Temperatures will change back to below freezing. The precipitation type, if it started as rain, will change to snow. So we have a chance for an interesting Thursday night in the coming week. And then here's Friday morning of next week, and I want to draw your attention to this pool of extremely cold air up over the Canadian archipelago, headed into the prairie provinces of Canada, into the oranges, reds, even greens. There's nothing at all that's in the way of this air moving down over us early in the following week, the week of February 8th. I think I can only go that far. This is the last time that I have. This is Friday night, and you can see in between Friday morning and Friday night the great progress that this cold air has made. The great progress this cold air has made from Friday morning to Friday night towards us, and it is on its way. So by the time we get into the heart of next weekend, we stand to be really chilly, maybe the coldest air of the year if this forecast verifies. So hang tight. It's going to be cold.